attention from Fidel Castro when he was president of Cuba, because he visited all of our centers. The Center for Genetic Engineering, National Research Center, which was our mother center. We grew up, the Cuban Center for Neuroscience. It was germinated inside the National Center for Scientific Research, which was personally created by Fidel. And Fidel met with us several times to discuss the future of our center, because he was pushing, as president, for the development of science in Cuba. And in his conception, this was an extension of the public health system. So the goal, the final goal of all these research centers, Center for Genetic Engineering, Finlay Institute, was not so much make a profit, but as guarantee that the Cuban population would have what it needed to have a good health, that our health system would operate adequately. And I think we've been very successful as an organization, and I'm speaking of BioCuba Pharma in doing this. Cuba for many years has supplied its population with subsidized medicine, the cheapest medicine in the world. Of all the essential pharmaceuticals and medicines, drugs are within the reach of the Cuban population at very low prices. And this is because we have a national industry that produces all these medicines, not for getting rich, but for really supplying to our population. Of course, if we can export it and obtain resources for our own development and for Cuba's economic development, well, I think that is something good. But we always export at reasonable prices. And I say that in this case, it's that conception. It's, I think, something which is contrary to what happens to the international pharmaceutical industry. Everybody believes that the big pharma in the world is after money, and there's a lot of insatisfaction with this, because depending, of course, according to the country, things that should be within reach of any citizen are very costly, and this costs a lot of money. And not renouncing to the idea that the Cuban pharmaceutical industry and biotechnological and medical equipment industry can make a profit, it's not at the cost of keeping it beyond the reach of the majority of humanity. You can't do that. That's not ethically moral. That's what Fidel taught us. Cuba's had a shortage of medicine recently. It's not because we don't have the capability of producing it. It's because the U.S. Embargo, or blockade as we call it, has very profound effects on the financial capabilities of buying the raw materials. So if we've had a shortage of medicine in the last year, in the midst of the COVID pandemic, it's been because the Trump administration tightened the embargo against Cuba, and it's made life very difficult. For example, recently we're buying materials to produce supplies for the COVID response with money which was given by the European Union and is being administered by the Pan American Health Organization, by PAHO. And this has been delayed months because the banks through which we tried to pay the suppliers could not operate with us because of the U.S. regulations. So many people now are trying to say that there's no embargo. They're trying to deny it, and they're lying through their teeth. The embargo has profound consequences for Cuba. It makes everything difficult, delays months and months, and even years, any normal commercial operations. And if there was 1 ounce of humanity in the U.S. government, they would have lifted all these restrictions during these times of pandemic.
Especially
when people are dying.
Especially in this new administration, Doctor.
I think this new administration has inherited a very messy situation created by the Trump administration, but they've acted very slowly. But I think the main responsibility is the Trump administration rolling back everything that was done by Obama and slapping more and more sanctions on Cuba. So anybody that says that the embargo does not exist is lying through his teeth. Because here I can put a dozen examples of things that have been made very difficult. We've been delayed months in carrying them out because of all the regulations that limit Cuban commerce in the world through the U.S. The U.S. has its tentacles all over the world. It reaches the whole world. It has commercial participation everywhere. Is capable of scaring people off that want to do business with Cuba. Anything like this was done to any other country that did not have the capability of mobilizing its people and had not developed the resilience to aggression that Cuba has over all these years, it would have provoked a very catastrophic humanitarian crisis. The COVID epidemic, but it's not comparable. Look at the numbers. Some people try our worst moment when, for certain moments, the COVID epidemic really overflowed our capabilities. It never reached the level of crisis that you've seen in many countries in South America and in many parts of the U.S. And this was blown out of proportion by the media, and nobody's taught about the inhumane idea of maintaining all these sanctions against Cuba in the midst of a pandemic. And this would have provoked in any other country a humanitarian catastrophe.